freedom.
Freedom.
Oh, freedom.
Freedom.
Oh, freedom over me, and before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free, No segregation, no segregation, no segregation over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free, No more mourning, no more mourning, no more mourning over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free, Oh, freedom.
Freedom.
Oh, freedom.
Freedom.
Oh, freedom over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free, Oh, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom lane. Lord ain't gonna let injustice turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom lane. Ain't gonna let no dogs turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let those dogs turn me around. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom lane. Ain't gonna let those jailhouses turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let those jailhouses turn me around. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom lane. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. It ain't no harm to keep your mind stayed on freedom. Oh, it ain't no harm to keep your mind talk, talk. Well now, talk. 'Cause it ain't no harm to keep your mind. Stay on freedom. Well, it ain't no harm to keep your mind. Stay on freedom. Well, it ain't no harm to keep your mind. Stay on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Somebody prayed for me. They had me on their mind. They took the time to pray for me. I'm so glad they prayed. Yes, I'm glad they prayed. I'm so glad they prayed for me. Oh, my mother prayed for me. My mother, she had me on her mind. She took the time to pray for me. Well. I'm so glad she prayed. Oh, yes, I'm glad she
true, and you will learn the reason why I sing this song, and you will know just what you have to do. We used to drink from rivers that were pure and dance in sparkling waters oh so blue, living in this amazing peaceful paradise, colors of every living kind of hue.
Check, check.
Of every hue. In the street,
check.
poison seas, oil drills, endless spills, water dies, nature cries. Why, oh why we couldn't see? We killed the living water. Where are the living waters? Where are the living waters? Where are the living waters? Poison seas, oil drills, endless spills, water dies, nature cries. Why, oh why we couldn't see? We killed the living waters. Where are the living waters? Where are the living waters? Where are the living waters?
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to recognize Santa Cruz Productions for their allowing us to use the Freedom Singers songs. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome each and every one to the Martin and Coretta King Unity Breakfast, the 2021. We know that this has been a tough year. We know that you obviously see a difference if you've attended before, a change in the venue, but we were determined to make sure we still held this Unity Breakfast. I think it's important that we recognize all the sacrifices that have been made and recognize all of the people whose lives have been lost as a result of COVID, and want them and their families to know they are always in our thoughts and prayers. Again, we would ask you to observe certain protocols as it relates to this. As much as possible, please stay in your cars. When you are outside or in a building, we have restrooms to the left in the Bird Building, to the right in the classroom building. When you're going into those buildings, please wear your mask. And we're trying to practice healthy protocols. We'd ask that you don't gather in groups outside And please don't throw your trash on our campus grounds. And also, because this is virtual in many instances, we ask your patience in case we experience technical difficulties. We have a very packed program. We are asking all program participants to please abide by the time limits established because we want to hear from everyone that's on the program. So we ask all program participants to abide by the time limits. It's printed on the program, and it clearly states your time. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Herbert Thomas to please come forward with a unity prayer. I'm sorry. I would like to ask Reverend Henry Hudson, pastor of St. Paul's Episcopal Church, to please come forward for a unity prayer.
This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We gather today 56 years after that historic moment when the people of Selma, the good people of Selma, rose up and said to Satan, "Get behind me, I've got a journey to go." And so we remember the heroes of that time. Not only those names became famous, but so many foot soldiers throughout the years who gave their lives and their hopes to make the kingdom of God real here in Dallas County and across Alabama and all across the world. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we come before you today, humbled by the events of the world around us, troubled by the fears and distortions that happen to all of us. But we come before you also with thankful hearts for the beauty of this day, for the opportunity to gather even in spite of all our difficulties. We thank you, O loving God, for the leaders of our community who have gathered this group together and will lead us throughout this whole weekend. We lift up those who have gone before us and have died, for those leaders who have been great lights in their generation and to all time, for Joseph Lowry, for John Lewis, for Bruce Boynton, C.T. Vivian, Vernon Jordan, and so many others. Grant them peace, O God. Let your power be upon them to heal them from all hurt and bring them to your heavenly throne. Lord Jesus, you prayed for your disciples that they would be one, even as you and the Father are one. That prayer guides our hearts today, for we cannot make it on our own. Not only are we racked by disease and separated from one another by economics, but we are also, O God, still filled with violence and hatred. Let your Holy Spirit guide us in this day of celebration of that event so long ago. But even more, O God, let your Holy Spirit dwell in our hearts and find that unity that you alone can give. We fall so far short, O loving God, and we are blind to our own prejudices and our own illnesses. Open our eyes again and again to see each other with the love that you have for them and for us. Bless us, O God, in this day, in this celebration. Bless us, O God, as we build that beloved kingdom that your servant Martin saw so long ago. May it be this day that your Holy Spirit leads us in all things. For we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Reverend Hudson. At this time, we will have a welcome by Probate Judge Jimmy Nunn, Dallas County.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone and to the organizers, elected officials, to the mayor of this great city, to all other elected officials, Dr. Mitchell, our guest speakers, and to everyone else. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this Martin and Coretta King Unity Breakfast this morning. It is with great privilege and honor that I bring greetings and welcome to you on behalf of Dallas County as we take part in the 56th anniversary of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee and the commemoration of the anniversary of the Bloody Sunday. and the Selma to Montgomery March. As we stand here today, we must not get complacent and forget the struggle that others have made so that we can be where we are here today. We must not forget people like Amelia Boynton, Bruce Boynton, C.T. Vivian, Annie Cooper, Marie Foster, Dr. F.D. Reese, Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Jose Williams, the Freedom Riders, and so many other foot soldiers who have marched across and done their duty. Let us not forget that right here in Selma, Alabama, that a sheriff by the name of Jim Clark, his deputies and his posse, clamped down on the blacks, attempting them to deny them the right to vote where I serve as the Dallas County probate judge. Let us not forget that they arrested jailers, protesters, as they were marching and as they were hauled off to a makeshift detention center called Camp Selma that was built just for the protesters because there was not room in the jail for them. Let us not forget the struggle that we are continuing on a daily basis. I'm so delighted that in light of what we're going through in this world today, that God is still in charge of our lives. Secondly, I know that all things work together for the good of them that love God and to them that are called according to his purpose. I ask you to continue to work. I ask God to continue to bless you. I ask you to continue to put God first in your life and let him continue to direct your path. On behalf of the Dallas County Commission, Vivian Rogers, Cornell Towns, Curtis Williams, and Jan Justice, we bring greetings and we welcome you. Again, we are excited to have you here participating in this 56th anniversary of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee and the Martin Coretta King Unity Breakfast this morning. May God bless each and every one of you, and may he continue to pour his blessings upon you, this nation, this state, and this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Nunn. At this time, we will have a welcome by Mayor James Perkins, City of Selma.
Good morning to all who are assembled here, and to those who are virtually present. I greet you on behalf of the City of Selma, the 9 members of the Selma City Council, and the representatives of all of those who work in our municipal government functions. I also greet you on behalf of the citizens of Selma and acknowledge that there are fewer of us now than there were before. We have lost some citizens, both to transition as a consequence of COVID-19, and we have lost citizens as a consequence of other factors. But we still stand on the promise that God will not forsake us. He has not left us, and we continue in the process of growing Selma and moving our community forward. We'd most certainly miss the swelling of the population that usually occurs on this weekend, and we most certainly hope that in the year coming that we will be able to assemble again in the streets of Selma, walk together across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and celebrate and commemorate those courageous individuals, the Dallas County Voters League, the Courageous 8, foot soldiers, and all who participated in this movement. And as we proceed throughout this year, I submit to us that we need to have a special prayer for the Biden administration as they wrestle and push forward Amendment 1. Somebody ought to say amen. We definitely need Amendment 1 passed, and I would hope that everyone in Selma, understanding the significance of our contributions to the voting rights of the people of color in this nation, not once, but twice, not just in 1965, but in 1865. And I am hoping that Selma will be a major part in leading the right to vote once again in this nation with this Amendment 1. And it is my hope that when we assemble again here in 2022, that we will be able to celebrate once again the strength of a Voting Rights Act in this nation that has teeth and that has the capacity to ensure that all people in this nation have the right to vote. Now, I say to you, for all of our success and for all the challenges that we will experience throughout the remainder of this year, just know I say, to God be the glory. You are welcome to Selma. God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Perkins. At this time, we will have a musical selection by Mr. Alvin Garrett.
Oh, 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 nah, nah. Oh, 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 nah, nah. Where are we marching? Do we know where the road's gonna end? Who are we following? Are we further than where we began? Who are we watching? Are we sure that they're really a friend? Why are we hollering? That's not how we're gonna win. It starts in the heart. That's where the journey begins. It starts in the heart. Oh yeah. That's where the pain will end. We'll never make it till we change direction. We'll only arrive there together. It starts in the heart. Ah, yeah. It starts in the heart. Do you remember their dreams from long ago? They painted a picture of a future we're yet to behold. Our vision is blurry, yeah, and we're blinded by all the noise. We need an awakening. We've been sleeping for way too long, and it starts in the heart. Ah, yeah. That's where the journey begins. It starts in the heart. Yeah. That's where the pain will end. We'll never make it till we change direction. We'll only arrive there together. It starts in the heart. In the heart. It starts in the heart. Y'all know what I'm saying? Who is holding your hand? Who is holding your hand? Who are you lending your ear? Oh, you better be careful that you don't be led astray. And it don't matter what they say. Don't be confused. It starts in the heart. And that's where the journey begins. Said it starts in the heart. And that's where the pain will end. We'll never make it till we change directions. Said we'll only arrive there together. It starts in the heart. Said it starts in the heart. Said it starts in the heart. That's where the journey begins. It starts in the heart. Oh yeah. That's where the pain will end. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garrett. At this time, we will have our unity greetings, and the unity greetings are 2 minutes each. At this time, we will have Mr. Leonard Dunston, convener, Institute of the Black World Black Family Summit. It is a pre-recorded message.
Good morning, Martin and Coretta King Community Unity Breakfast attendees. My name is Leonard G. Dunston, and I'm the convener of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century's Black Family Summit. I am honored to bring greetings on behalf of our esteemed president, Dr. Ron Daniels, board members, and the presidents of the 29 national Black professional and activist organizations that comprise the Black Family Summit, which also includes the Voting Rights Museum and the Jubilee. We salute and honor the incredible work that Dr. Mitchell, Attorney Hank Saunders, and their staff members have once again performed by convening this most significant breakfast despite the pandemic and its myriad challenges. We also congratulate each speaker, as well as Brother Drew Glover, the recently appointed Jubilee Project Coordinator. Please enjoy your breakfast.
It's all right to honk your horns. At this time, we will have Attorney Carolyn Gaines Varner, Chair of the National Voting Rights Museum and Institute.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The National Voting Rights Museum was originally the sponsor of this Wisconsin Jubilee. A lot of people don't know that. Only 5 or 6 years ago did the Jubilee incorporate and became the sponsor, the official sponsor of this event. But it is also sponsored in part by not only the National Voting Rights Museum, but also several other organizations. And we're so happy to have you here for this affair. Now, you know, this has been a stressful year. And not only have we had the COVID, but also I've been sick. I've had 2 aneurysms this year also. And I just praise God to know that I'm still here and I'm still able to have this breakfast. I'm able to attend this breakfast, and I just feel good that just to be here. And I just want to know that all of you who also came out, we really appreciate your presence too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Varner. At this time, we will have Mrs. Rebecca Marion, Chair of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee.
Good morning. This is the day the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad. Giving honor to God, the platform guests, and thanks to Dr. Mitchell and all elected officials, it is indeed my pleasure to stand here before you as the chairman of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee to bring you greetings for the wonderful board that I chair and the wonderful members that serve diligently on that board. They have worked so hard during this pandemic to pull this together, and I want to say thanks to them in my greetings. So from the board, I bring you greetings from the board, and I welcome you to Selma, and anything that you ever need our board to assist you with, we will be standing there to help. So thank you, and that's my greeting from the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marion. At this time, we will have Ms. Mia Suggs, First Vice President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Eta Omega Chapter.
Good morning. My name is Mia Suggs, and I am the First Vice President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Eta Omega Chapter of Selma, Alabama. On behalf of our President, Karen Brown, and members, I bring you greetings. Unity is defined as the state of being together or oneness. The reason the concept of unity is essential is that it has been seen time and time again that if two or more people come together with the agenda of fulfilling a task, the task is well done. Psalm 133:1 states, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity." Unity represents togetherness and being there for each other like we all are one. There is nothing quite like joining with people in a sense of unity. The Unity Breakfast honors two people, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, who embodied the concept of unity and were willing and sacrificed themselves for great causes. In conclusion, as we gather today, we must remember that strength is always in unity. As the great Dr. Martin Luther King said, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Suggs. Now we will have Mr. Charles Malden, a foot soldier.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell and the Jubilee Committee. I'll be very brief, but I want to be very specific. It's very seldom that the people who actually are the essence of the civil rights movement are given the credit they're due, and I'm glad that we're given an opportunity here today. The foot soldiers were the ones who started the movement, and I'd like to name some specific names. There were many foot soldiers, but there are some very specific foot soldiers who were the beginning of the Selma movement. Those people were people like Terry Shaw, Charles Bonner, Cleophas Hobbs, Jerry Harrison, Betty Fikes, Evelyn Mann, Viola Johnson Dudley. These were the pioneers that started the Selma movement. When nobody stood up, they stood out and they stood firm. I'd like to give them credit in recognition of what they contributed to people like myself getting started. They were the first wave, and they were the ones who were heavily influenced by Dr. Bernard Lafayette, and they followed his calling. I came in the second wave. I, along with the other students, participated in all of the demonstrations, both large and small, that led up to the eventual passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. There was Bloody Sunday, as horrific as it was. There was Turnaround Tuesday, as disappointing for many of the young folks that it was. There was an injunction in Selma where we were not allowed to vote. Dr. King had a choice and was advised by his attorney, Fred Gray, let's not violate this injunction because we need the support of the federal government. Wisely, and we didn't think it was wise at the time because we were young and ambitious, Dr. King decided to sit down and pray, but to turn around, and that was called Turnaround Tuesday. That led to the eventual release of the injunction and our march to Montgomery. After that came the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. In a 1969 article in Jet magazine, a person by the name of Artis Malden mentioned in that article that had it not been for the children, they never would have come out. That was the importance of people like Betty Fikes and Evelyn Mann and Terry Shaw and others, Cleophas Hobbs especially. As a result of, and in this article she said, because the children came out, it gave us courage to come out and register to vote also. It turns out that that person, Artis Malden, became and is credited with being the first person to register to vote in the country as a result of the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. I can't verify that that's true accurately, but at least I can verify that she was the first person in Dallas County, and her husband, Thomas Malden, was the second. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malden, and thank you for all of your sacrifices. At this time, we will have Ms. Azali Fortier, 21st Century Youth Leadership Movement.
Hi, my name is Azali Fortier. I'm 13 years old, and I would like to firstly welcome you all to Selma, Alabama. I hope you guys enjoy your stay. Today I'm going to talk about something that's different from whatever everybody else is talking about, but it's not the main focus. The main focus is to vote, to encourage you guys to vote in whatever elections that you participate in. But today, me specifically, I'll be talking about society, women, and girls. Women and girls deserve the world. At least I believe it's true. I believe we should be treated like the queens that we are, no matter how anyone else feels. We shouldn't feel the pressure of society. We shouldn't have to deal with the constant looks, judgment, fears, and lack of self-worth. So I urge you to ask yourself, aren't I a woman? Do I myself not deserve the world and more? Are the things I hope other women and girls get so far-fetched that I cannot have them myself? But like a woman, I birth my dreams and I take actions. I show you a light in the darkness and you have taken it for granted. But how can I blame you? I have too. How can I blame you? I've been trained to believe my body is only for the man's pleasure. So when they want something, don't hold back. Society kisses you on the cheek and comforts you until the accusations come. Now suddenly you're a hoe. Expired goods. Suddenly you don't fit the standards. That's when the judgment comes in, and the look of shame stings. But how can I blame them? I am a hoe. I am worth nothing. I'm damaged goods. Aren't I society, I ask. Guess what? Society says yes. That one simple word crushing me into eternal darkness. But who would come and show me the light? No one, because I am a woman, stuck in a woman's place. Society opened the door, and I went through it. And now to add on to the pile of names, I am a weak woman. The purpose of these words are not only to show how society treats women, but how what a woman thinks of herself affects her outcome. As women, we often put down ourselves but lift up other women, and that's the mistake that we make. We have to set the standards not only for other women, but for ourselves. We have to believe that we deserve more than what we are given. We have to think about, how do I want to be treated, and treat ourselves that way. We can't always rely on other people to do it for us. And like I said earlier, the whole point of this event is to get you guys to vote, but I also wanted to shed light on this. So I urge you to ask yourself, what do I want? How do I want to be treated? And how can I treat myself in that way? Thank you.
Thank you, Azali. At this time, we will have recognition of our elected officials. I know normally you would stand and be recognized, but since we can't do that, all elected officials, we'd like for you to honk your horns. Thank you for all of your service, and thank you for what you do. I would also like to recognize some of our sponsors and our major supporters: the National Voting Rights Museum and Institute, Wallace Community College, Selma, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, 21st Century Youth Leadership Movement, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Selma to Montgomery March 50th Foundation. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Also, our major supporters: Alabama Power Company, Whitehall Entertainment, Protective Life Insurance Company, Porch Creek Indians, Google, and Drummond Company. Let's give them a round of applause. I'd also like to recognize and thank our WCCS student volunteer workers here today: Jared Benjamin, Gabriel Crum, Shamaya Hall, Samaya Jones, and Jalen Oles. Thank you, WCCS. And also recognize the deputy senator volunteers, Senator Fortier's deputy senators who have volunteered to help this morning. Thank you, and let's give them a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the Unity Breakfast Committee for all of their hard work in planning this event, and thank them for committing their time and energy. Thank you. And in case I've forgotten someone, chalk it to my mind, not to my heart. I'm old. At this, thank you. At this time, we will have Congresswoman Terry Sewell from our 7th Congressional District. Congresswoman Sewell.
Good morning, Selma. Honk your horn if you're at home. I'm Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and I proudly represent Alabama's 7th Congressional District in the halls of Congress. I know I do so because I stand on the shoulders of these foot soldiers. We all do. But as Amelia Boynton Robinson said, it's time for us to get off their shoulders and do our own work. I want to thank Dr. Mitchell, the president of Wallace Community College, Senator Sanders, and Attorney Fire Rose, yes, give them a honk, for keeping this alive year after year. You know, they say that you can't keep a good show down, and we're doing this Unity Breakfast virtual, and I want to thank everybody who's participating, because here's what I know for sure. If we do not know our past, we will repeat our past. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going back. We have to continue to move forward. Alabama's 7th Congressional District is the epicenter in the fight against Jim Crow. Our district district was the battleground in the fight for voting rights, civil rights, human rights. We are proof positive that all things can happen to those who love the Lord. Faith, resilience, determination. Those were the key ingredients. And yes, a big dose of courage and bravery. I bring to you, I submit to you that Selma is still now. We know that state legislatures across this country are trying to roll back voting rights. And we know why they're doing it. They lost Georgia. Not one senator, but 2 senators. We put President Biden in the White House, and he's about to deliver on a $1.9 trillion rescue plan. It will put money in the pockets of ordinary Americans. Money in the pocket, $1,400 checks. It will put vaccinations in the arms of all Americans, and we make sure that it must be equitably distributed, targeted at our communities. It's critically important that you know we have a provision in there that will expand Medicaid. States like Alabama will be incentivized to expand Medicaid. I want you to know that it would also extend our unemployment benefits through September 9th. I want you to know that we hear you, we see you, and President Biden and Kamala Harris are helping along the way. Help is truly on the way. I look forward to going back to Washington next week. I leave tomorrow morning to vote in favor of Biden's American Rescue Plan. Because I know that the people I represent not only need help, they need all of the resources and opportunities that everyone else enjoys. We must and we can do better. You know, as we commemorate the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, I am reminded that we are missing some foot soldiers. We are missing Joseph Lowery. We are missing C.T. Vivian. We are missing Bruce Boynton. We are missing John Lewis. We have to know our history. You know, but I want y'all to know that their sacrifice was not in vain. We must pick up the baton and carry forward. I look forward to introducing H.R. 4, rename the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act to fully restore the full protections of the VRA. We got to do it. And I'm going to need all of y'all's help because Biden has said he's willing to sign it, but it has to get through a Senate. I can get it through the House, but it has to get through a Senate with 60 votes, which means we got to put pressure on Republicans to do the right thing. All right. As I take my seat, I'm going to put my mask back on because I'm about to get into some good trouble, some necessary trouble. All right? On behalf of the American people, I just want to say to my home folks in Selma, I'm humbled every day to have the opportunity to represent us in the halls of Congress. I will never forget where I'm from. Way before I had titles behind my name, I was a little girl from Selma, Alabama. I went to Westside Junior High School. I went to Selma High School proudly. And I know that that's a foundation on which I stand. And there is nothing more important over these next 4 years than to get the full protections of the Voting Rights Act back. It's going to take all of us to do that. And I give you my commitment that I will work hard every day because that is the legacy of the foot soldiers. That is the legacy of Selma, Alabama. And we must remember from whence we come. To God give the glory. Amen.
Let's give Congresswoman Sewell another round of applause. Next, we will have State Senator Malika Fortier was unable to be here this morning, so standing in for her, and quite ably so, Ms. Ianka Jackson.
Good morning out there. I first want to start by just saying thank you to Congresswoman Sewell for getting into some good trouble. For honoring our Selma superheroes, that's what my t-shirt calls them, who dedicated their lives and sacrifice so that we may have the right to vote, so that we could fulfill the dream of a beloved community. So thank you for that. Thank you for getting into good trouble with the fight to make sure that those of us who the states didn't do Medicaid expansion the first time around have the opportunity again, because you know our communities are in crisis, y'all. They're in crisis. And so when you're in crisis, you got to go the extra mile. And so I thank her for doing that. And our Senator Malika Sanders Fortier wanted me to especially do that. My name is Ianka Jackson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Selma Center for Nonviolence, Truth, and Reconciliation. And Senator Malika Sanders Fortier is one of our co-founders and board members. We were founded in 2015 amidst the 50th anniversary of the Selma Montgomery March and Bloody Sunday. That weekend, when people were here from all over the world in different parts of the country, the KKK allegedly distributed 30,000 recruitment flyers. Then on that Sunday, it was a different kind of Bloody Sunday. We had 2 murders that Sunday, 2 more in less than a month in a town that's less than 20,000 people. 2014, our county was the poorest in the state. 2015, we were the most dangerous place to live in Alabama. And 2016, the 8th most dangerous place per capita in the country. This is insane, y'all. So this place where nonviolence overcame violence was the 8th most dangerous place per capita in the country. Why is this? We believe that broken relationships have led to broken economies, leading to broken communities, all in need of healing. So we partner with communities to heal relationships, to heal the economy, and to heal the communities. Our founders, which include Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who was a leader in the Nashville Sit-In, the Freedom Rides, the Selma movement, and who Dr. King appointed to be over the Poor People's Campaign, they came together and said we needed to address violence in all its forms, whether it be physical violence, racial violence, or economic violence. We often don't think about poverty as being violence, y'all, but anything that dehumanizes other people is a form of violence. And so they came together, and this is what we're doing, y'all. And so in our very first board meeting, Dr. Lafayette said we needed a Selma too. He said that there is unfinished work of the civil rights movement. How many folks know that there's unfinished business of the civil rights movement? And it's important that we realize that, y'all, that voting is this masterful tool to help reach us, to get us to the beloved community. And so that's what we're about. Selma 2.0, bridging divides and building the beloved community. And we're so excited, and Senator Fortier wanted me to make sure to tell you all this. We are so excited that our city and county government has been the first to officially become beloved community city and county governments. That's something to honk your horns about. And it didn't stop there. Our educational institutions did the same. Our public school, county, and city systems, and this community college did the same. And that's important, and let me tell you why. Because the beloved community is a restorative city. Like our beloved community, that means they've made a commitment to be restorative cities, where there will be peace, prosperity, and protection for all, y'all. At one point, Selma, Dallas County was the 4th wealthiest county in the whole nation because of enslaved Africans, because of the free labor of enslaved Africans. But when you say a beloved community, right, that means that now there's going to be prosperity for all. Not based on free labor, but that our gifts, talents, we can be able to prosper based on our gifts and talents. That's something beautiful, y'all. And so I'm so excited that our government leaders have decided that's something worthy of doing. In closing, I'll just say that
The beloved community is a reconciled community where relationships are raised to a height where justice prevails and people attain their full human potential, y'all. That's Selma 2.0. Join us.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson, and thank you for all that you do for our community. At this time, we will have reflections by Martin Luther King III.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me thank God for the opportunity to be back in Selma. First, to all pastors or religious leaders that are here, and it is an honor, Dr. Mitchell, to be back with you again. And we first thank your leadership here at Wallace College. Let me also say that when we think about the Jubilee and what it represents, not just to Selma, but really to our nation, there are so many that must be thanked, but I have to first thank Senator Sanders and Rose Sanders, Fire Sanders. And they hold a very special place in my heart because they have been fighting for a long time. And they stay on the battlefield. Let me also thank especially Congresswoman Terry Sewell for the leadership that she continues to provide for this district, but for our nation. She just talked about the votes that she's getting ready to take, and there are votes almost every day. And she works tirelessly serving this district and our nation. And so I'm always honored to be with her. Also, there are some who were here in '65, or others. Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who's back here, the chairman of the board of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the president of SCLC, Dr. Charles Steele. Now, I'm probably going to miss some people. These are all dear friends of mine. And one of the sons of Reverend Jesse Jackson, Brother Jonathan Jackson, we all grew up in the struggle together. Always good to be with him. Now, forgive me if I'm missing someone and attribute it to my head and not my heart, because there are many that should be recognized. I want to also say congratulations to all honorees that are being honored this year. I am so thankful that we are here, but I'm saddened that we are still having to fight to protect and to preserve and to expand the right to vote. And as we are here right now, over 40 states are passing legislation or attempting to, this legislative session, to suppress the black and brown votes all over America. They are mostly, and I would say probably all, led by Republicans. So the question I have is, as a nation, how do you go all over the world talking about expanding democracy, and in your own home, you suppress the right to vote? What kind of nation are we living in 2021? My dad and many of us gave their lives so that we can have this precious right. And as I think about my dad, I got to say something about my very dear friend of many years, Cheyenne Webb Christberg, who certainly is right from this city, but also was one of those who marched on Bloody Sunday, along with Congressman Lewis and Hosea Williams. In fact, I think Hosea Williams picked her up and was running back across the bridge. And she said and looked up to him, "Hey, mister, put me down. You're not running fast enough." But I can't say enough about her and the leadership that she has provided developing young people. You see, because it really is about generations coming behind and generations yet unborn. And I learned that a long time ago, but we're thankful for her leadership because she always focuses on young people. This morning, I think our challenge as we observe this Bloody Sunday anniversary, I am convinced that one day we're going to be in a position where we will have more online registration, even online voting. We will be able to vote anytime, any day, whenever during the election period. And we won't have to worry about days being cut out of early voting. We won't have to worry about waiting in lines that are so long. You know, in my state, Georgia, they are trying to pass a law that says if people are standing in line, it's illegal for you to bring somebody some water. How sick is that? Although last year and in January of this year, January 5th, when newly elected Senator Raphael Warnock was elected and newly elected Senator John Ossoff, while that election cycle, and last year in November, when the nation and Georgia helped to elect President Biden and Vice President Harris, they couldn't find anything wrong with the process. But yet, right now in the legislative session, they are making laws to restrict, not expand. Now, the only way we combat these things, and you know, think about this. Many years ago, during Jim Crow, and it probably wasn't that many when we think about it, they used to ask us how many bars in a bubble of soap. How many bubbles in a bar of soap? Or how high is up? Those were the questions you had to answer to vote. Today, they are the same results because the result is to keep us from voting. So you cut back on days to vote. You close certain polling sites so you make it hard for people to vote. You say you can only vote at this time, and people, most of us have to work. And we only get a half an hour for lunch. And so how can you go vote? Maybe we need a national holiday when voting time comes. That's what we need to look at. As the Congresswoman told us, it is wonderful that we have H.R. 1 passed in the House, and much of the great legislation passes in the House. But because the Senate is a 50-50 group, and of those 50 who are Democrats, all of them do not always support legislation. And of course, the tie would be broken if it was a 50 vote by the vice president. I mean, I want to reflect for just a minute because the Senate just passed the stimulus bill of $1.9 trillion, which is a good thing because American people need help. Many need help. And the Republicans balked. Not one Republican supported that legislation. Almost 70% of Americans believed that this needed to be done. But yet all of the Republicans, and I maybe feel like most of those folk need to be voted out of office. How can you be that insensitive and that inhumane? This is a unique time, and it calls for unique answers. It calls for us to go beyond and above the call of duty. Not because we want to, but because we have to and because we can. You know, my dad and mom taught us that it only takes a few good women and men for us to make change. Again, I'm thankful to Senator Sanders and Fire for creating this Martin and Coretta King, or Coretta and Martin King breakfast that we come to every year for this Jubilee. Again, I will never be able to thank them enough, because what most people don't realize is that Dad and Mom were a team. And that's what Fire saw specifically, and Senator Sanders. They were not just separate partners. We saw them marching in Selma. We saw many things happen in Montgomery. I remember we went to the Meredith March. My mom and, of course, Dad had been there, and maybe my brother and older sister. So we've been involved in a way, and they were truly partners. Now let me go on and get to my conclusion, because I am convinced that it just takes, again, a few good women and men to bring about change. You know, in Georgia, when we won, Stacey Abrams was the nucleus. But LaTosha Brown and Deborah Scott and Helen Butler, just to name a few of the African-American women who were mobilizing people so that they would get text messages, they would get door knocks, they would get approached in many ways so that we could win that election. And that structure that they created, and many more, must be duplicated in North Carolina and South Carolina, here in Alabama, in Mississippi, and other southern states. We have to be unrelenting because they want to make sure that we don't participate, because in their minds, that's the only way they can win. So how can we allow them to break laws or to change the rules? I mean, now historically, this is what they've done. Every time we get up, every time they change the rules. So what we've got to do, you know, have you ever seen when the wind blows and trees go all the way over to the ground, but they come back up? And you call that resilience. We need that quality, a resilience quality. So let me rush to tell you, you may ask the question, and I remember my dad saying some of this, how long will it be? I don't know how long, but I do know that no lie can last forever. How long? Not long, because truth, crushed to earth, will rise again. How long? Not long, because God Almighty is still on the throne. Thank you, Selma. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you for coming each year. Thank you for supporting us. At this time, we will have the presentation of the 2021 International Leadership Award, and the award will be presented by Senator Hank Sanders.
My brothers and sisters, it's just so good to be here and so good to have you here. This award goes to a person who has a very powerful voice. He had a powerful voice in the 60s when he, as a student, joined in the struggle not only for voting rights, but the struggle for desegregation. He had a powerful voice in the 70s and 80s when he found a way to try to help South Carolina. He had a powerful voice in the 90s and 2000 whenever he was a part of the Congress. In fact, he eventually became the whip and came here to Selma to receive the National Unity Award in 2015. But since that time, his voice has become even more powerful. It's not only powerful here, it's powerful across the United States of America and across the world. Without him, I feel absolutely certain that Joe Biden would not be president. And the whole world is better off because of Joe Biden, and then better off because of Congressman James Clyburn. So at this particular time, I want to present this award to Congressman, the whip of the U.S. Congress, Congressman James Jim Clyburn, and he will say some words.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Sanders. Thanks to you and Rose for the tremendous work you do year in and year out, keeping this dream alive and keeping the perpetuation of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee going on and on and on. And I would hope coming behind you will be people who will keep it going ad infinitum. I want to thank Carrie Sewell, a longtime friend. Got to know her through the AME Church movement, and I've been enjoying serving her in the United States Congress. And I'm looking forward to a few days now getting H.R. 4, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, enacted into law. And I'm looking forward to us continuing H.R. 1 that will do, hopefully, what is necessary, as you just heard from Martin Luther King III, will make voting day a holiday. Of course, I'm one of those who believe that we should make voting day a weekend every year. Why do we vote on Tuesday but to make it hard for people who look like you and me to cast a ballot? Now, I want to say just a couple of things to you about unity breakfast. This unity does not mean unanimous. We do not have to be unanimous in thought in order to have a unified spirit. We do have and should keep unity in the things that we do. We ought to entertain each other's ideas, sit down around the table and learn from each other and come away from the table unified. That is what took place time and time again right there in Selma. Everybody sitting in on all those meetings did not have the same ideas. That's why they were so strong in their efforts, because took everybody's ideas and brought them to the table, had discussions, and then moved forward in unity. That's what this breakfast is all about, getting everybody to work on one accord. And to be getting an international award in the name of Coretta and Martin Luther King Jr. reminds me of the first time I met Dr. King. We were at Morehouse College in our second meeting of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. We met with him, started at 10 o'clock one night, and we did not come out of that meeting until 4 o'clock the next morning. I call that experience my Saul to Paul transformation. And I have tried to carry that spirit with me throughout everything that I do. And the one thought I want to leave with you here today is this one. It comes from Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham City Jail, not too far from where you were meeting this morning. You may recall he was sitting there in jail. He got a letter from 8 white clergymen urging him to leave Birmingham because, according to them, he was a disruptive force. He said on that occasion that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But what I like most about what King wrote in that letter, he wrote in that letter that he was coming to the conclusion that the people of ill will were making a much better use of time than the people of goodwill. And he said to us on that occasion that he thought that we would be made to repent in this generation, not just for the vitriolic words and deeds of bad people, but for the appalling silence of good people. Ladies and gentlemen, with legislatures all over this country passing laws to suppress the vote, with people doing everything that they can to deny equal opportunities to people of color, black and brown, we must break our silence. We must not be silent. Silence, my dad used to say, gives consent. And none of us will consent to be in second-class citizenships. So let me just say this. I thank you, Rose and Hank. I thank you to all the people of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee. Thank you, Terry, for your service. I just hope that I live long enough to prove myself worthy of this great award that you've given me today. Thank you and Godspeed.
At this time, we will have presentation of the 2021 National Leadership Award by Fire Rose to U.S. Senator John Ossoff and U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. What a wonderful day. It was March 7, 1965, that many of you, like Charles Malden, gathered. Many of the people that gathered were young people that we should never forget. That was 56 years ago. The road to democracy began there. But Georgia is on my mind today. Georgia is on my mind because Georgia gave democracy a new boost. And because of Georgia, we have a chance to really bring about some real change in America. It is my honor to present the awards to 2 of the beneficiaries of that Georgia movement that began in Mississippi and Selma decades ago. The 2 men that I will introduce for these awards all live in Georgia. 2 senators from Georgia. One, the son and survivor of the Black Holocaust. Another, the son and survivor of the Jewish Holocaust. These men from Georgia were inspired by a woman from Georgia, none other than Sister Abrams, to run for the U.S. Senate. It was thought impossible. It was thought impossible that Georgia, a deep southern state, could not only give a victory to Biden and our first woman vice president who happens to be black, but also a victory for all of the people of the United States. Because if it was not for these two senators who voted just last night or a day ago to pass a stimulus that would make all of us beneficiaries of these two men who we honor today. Brothers and sisters, without introducing in detail who they are, you know who they are. What they have in common, though, I think is extraordinary. Both of them are linked to John Lewis. One of them was a mentee of John Lewis, and other was the pastor who actually eulogized John Lewis. These two men we honor today because God works in mysterious ways. Who would have thought in 1965 that 56 years later, a black man and a Jewish man from Georgia would be the votes we needed to pass a $1.9 million stimulus? So at this time, we will hear from these giants who will serve us well. And let me just say this, when I really was so pleased with Dr. Warnock. You know, there were people who said to him, you can't talk black. You can't talk about reparations and police brutality. You're running for the Senate. You can't turn people off. He said, I'm going to stand on my principle and be who I am. And he won that election. So today, you have two men who are the most unlikely people to serve as the senators of Georgia, but they're here today to accept the Leadership Award because they are leading us down the path of democracy that the people in Selma and Mississippi died and fought for 56 years ago. So without further ado, I would like to give these awards, these leadership awards, to Senator Jon Ossoff and Dr. Raphael Warnock. Let's give them some love because all of us are going to benefit. All of us are going to benefit.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Selma. Good morning. Thank you so much to you, Fire Rose. Thank you for your warm introduction. I want to thank as well your extraordinary partner, State Senator Hank Sanders. Y'all, please give it up for Hank. And don't worry, I can hear you honking. Please give it up for your United States Representative, Terry Sewell, my friend. Please give it up for the whip in the U.S. House of Representatives, someone whose influence is not just national but global, Congressman Jim Clyburn. Please join me in honoring my friend, my colleague, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock. I bear greetings from Senator Warnock, who just this morning is preaching from the pulpit at Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta. And please also join me in honoring President Joe Biden, who I know will be addressing you later this morning and who has already demonstrated what wise leadership with integrity can mean and achieve at a moment of crisis like this. I want to briefly thank you and express to you why this award means so much to me and why what we've seen unfold in Georgia in these last 6 months means so much to the people of Georgia and says so much about where we stand as a people. It was 56 years ago that John Lewis and Hosea Williams and hundreds of others marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in your home city, daring to demand the right to vote for Black Americans in the American South. And they were undeterred by the rows of troopers who met them on the other side of that bridge. They were beaten, they were set upon by dogs and fire hoses. They were met with brutality and violence, as so many who struggled for voting rights and civil rights were in the 1960s across the American South, as so many have been throughout American history, from coast to coast, for daring to demand human rights and civil rights and voting rights. But they were undeterred. And the example of their suffering and the example of their courage had such an impact throughout this country that it paved the way for passage of the Voting Rights Act to be signed just months later by President Lyndon Johnson. And in the White House with him as that legislation was signed were many of the towering civil rights heroes of that era. And it was just 2 months ago that black voters in Georgia, defying officials and politicians who to this day would use the force of law to disenfranchise them, that those black voters stood in line, defied voter suppression to demand change in the state of Georgia and change in the United States at a moment of crisis. Black voters delivered that victory in Georgia. Black voters delivered that victory in Georgia. And as Faya Rose said, that victory in Georgia means that now the state of Georgia, the heart of the old Confederacy and the cradle of the civil rights movement, sent the young Jewish son of an immigrant and a black preacher who holds Dr. King's pulpit at Ebenezer Baptist Church to represent Georgia in the United States Senate, to win the Senate majority so that we can pass landmark legislation like the stimulus bill that we passed on yesterday morning, which is the most significant economic relief bill to benefit working class and middle class Americans passed by the US Congress in generations. Voting matters, representation matters. Georgia voters made that possible. Black voters in Georgia made that possible. And without the sacrifices of those who crossed the Edmund-Pettus Bridge 56 years ago, it would not have been possible. 56 years is not too long. And so I guess it shouldn't be surprising that 56 years later, the power of the right to vote having just been demonstrated, that politicians here in Georgia are trying to disenfranchise black people again, are trying to strip away the right to vote that so many bled and died for by passing voter suppression legislation that is no better than Jim Crow. And those politicians who would use the force of law to disenfranchise black people in the American South today are no better than Bull Connor. And that's why in the United States Senate, we must pass the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And we must pass the We the People for the People Act to end voter suppression, to protect the sacred right to vote. Because the struggle continues. You know, Congressman Lewis gave me my first job. He was my mentor for nearly 2 decades. He instilled in me the conviction to fight for justice. I'll never forget the first time I sat down for a meal with Congressman Lewis. I was 16 or 17 years old. And what he wanted to talk to me about was the alliance between Jews and blacks in the South. Because as a young Jewish man working in the office of a civil rights legend, he wanted to impart to me his view of that history and the importance of the Black-Jewish alliance in the American South. It was 1957 when Dr. King established the SCLC in Atlanta, Georgia. It was 1958 when the temple, my synagogue where I was bar mitzvahed, was bombed by white supremacists for standing in alliance with those demanding civil rights in the American South. And Congressman Lewis told me about how after he marched across that bridge, this bridge, 56 years ago, and he was laying with a fractured skull, having nearly lost his life, being tended to by nuns. And Dr. King came and kneeled by his bedside and told John Lewis not to worry, because Dr. King had put out the call, as Congressman Lewis told me, for faith leaders across the country to come to Selma and to cross the bridge again, to demonstrate that those who were crusading for voting rights were undeterred by violence and could not be stopped and would march all the way to Montgomery. And the next day, it was Black preachers and Catholic priests and Jewish rabbis and people of all faiths, leaders of all faiths, who crossed the bridge again to demonstrate that defiance in the face of brutality and violence. And though we lost Congressman Lewis last year, I know he is looking down on us right now, beaming with optimism and pride that Georgia is represented in the Senate by his mentee and his pastor, a Jewish man and a Black man, that all of you and all of us are gathered here today, not just to honor and remember what they did 56 years ago, but to recommit to the movement, to recommit to the struggle, to keep carrying the torch forward, to take action, to expand human rights, to defend voting rights and civil rights, to make real America's promise of equal justice for all. Thank you so much again for this honor today. This is just the beginning. I want to again thank Faya Rose and Hank. I want to thank someone that I've come to know as a friend, Mayor James Perkins. When I made the pilgrimage to Selma just a few months ago and I sat in Mayor Perkins' office, that was a profound moment for me. Mayor Perkins, much love from the great state of Georgia. Once again, deep respect to Congressman Clyburn, Congresswoman Sewell, President Joe Biden. Much love to you all. I wish you good health. Keep the faith. Better days are coming. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to offer my thanks to the Selma to Montgomery Nonprofit Commemoration Foundation, the Wallace Community College of Selma, and the National Voting Rights Museum, and others for inviting me to speak here today. It is really my honor to be here before you as we observe this annual Martin and Coretta King Unity Breakfast. And I'm deeply honored to stand here as the newly elected United States Senator from the great state of Georgia. Right off the bat, let me say we remember John Lewis, the hero of Bloody Sunday. I had the honor of serving as his pastor, but he was for me a mentor and a continuing inspiration. By his stripes, we're healed. As I was preparing to officiate his funeral a few months ago, I asked myself, what was John Lewis thinking when he was crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge? I don't know the answer to that question, but of this I'm certain. He was not thinking that if he stood up in that moment, one day he would receive a Presidential Medal of Freedom. He wasn't thinking about that. He wasn't thinking that at his funeral, the whole nation would pause to celebrate him and that 3 living presidents, both Democrats and Republican, would show up for his funeral. John Lewis stood up in that moment because it was the right thing to do. And so we celebrate him. We remember Hosea Williams. We remember so many others who gave so much, not only in that moment, but in the valiant fight for voting rights. Viola Luiso, a white woman who stood up and lost her life fighting for voting rights. Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, 2 Jews and an African American. we lift up so many. And we are inspired by them as we continue the fight in this moment, because sadly there are forces at work in our country right now, especially in my home state of Georgia, who are trying to push back against voting rights. They don't like what we achieved on November 4th, and they don't like what we achieved on January 5th, and some push back violently on January 6th. But in memory of John Lewis, in memory of so many others who stood up, we have to stand up in this moment, because our vote is our voice is our human right. And so thank you so very much for gathering in this moment. It is so very important that we keep these issues in front of us. And it's so very important that we remember. As a pastor, I'm struck by the ways in which over and again in Scripture, the Scripture reminds us to pass the faith on to our children. The Scripture reminds us of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of our ancestors. Faith and memory are inextricably connected. John Lewis and those who stood up with him had no reason to believe that they could win. But they thought that even if they lost that battle, it was well worth it. That the moral arc of the universe, as Dr. King used to say, is long, but it bends toward justice, and they kept bending that arc. And so let's keep bending the arc in the days ahead, which is why I'm happy to put forward as a lead co-sponsor of the For the People Act, which will expand voting rights while others are trying to restrict voting rights. I'll be pushing hard and championing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We cannot go back. We will not go back. We will stand up. And so on this Bloody Sunday, we know that there is fierce opposition, but there is also fantastic opportunity. We know that there is violence, but our God teaches us how to snatch victory even out of the jaws of violent opposition. Finally, it's Sunday, March 7th, 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. It's also the season of Lent. As we make that march, those of us who embrace the Christian faith, toward Easter Sunday, which this year is on April 4th, the anniversary of Dr. King's death. And so as we think about his death, as we think about the sacrifice of so many others, Easter Sunday reminds us that evil, injustice, racism, bigotry, violence will never have the last word. What feels like a bad Friday can become a good Friday. And what feels like and is experienced as a bloody Sunday reaped rewards for generations to come. Let us stand up in this moment. Truth is on our side. Justice is on our side. God is on our side. Keep the faith and keep looking up.
Thank you, Senators Ossoff and Warnock. At this time, we will have Senator Sanders introduce our keynote speaker. Senator Sanders.
I'm not introducing anyone. I am presenting someone. And I want to present a person who came here in 2014 and received a National Unity Award at the Martin and Coretta King Unity Breakfast. I want to present a person who served as the vice president to the first African-American president in these United States. I want to present a person who selected the first woman and the first African-American woman and some other things as the vice president. Think of this country is like 230 years old, and there's never been a woman as vice president or president. I want to present a person who is very powerful, but that's not enough, because the person who was in that office immediately preceding him was very powerful. But this president is caring. This president is concerning. This president is determined to lift folks rather than push folks down. So I want to present the person who is not only the most powerful person in the United States, but the most powerful person in the entire world. I present at this moment President Joe Biden.
Good morning to everyone joining us in this unity breakfast named after Dr. and Mrs. King, and to commemorate the anniversary of the march in Selma. I know this is the first commemoration of Bloody Sunday without Reverend C.T. Vivian, Reverend Joseph Lowry, and my buddy John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis. Preachers of the social gospel, architects of the beloved community they built not only with words, but with actions. And reminders that in our lifetime for Black Americans, the fundamental right to vote has been denied by white supremacy, both hiding behind white hoods and in plain sight in state houses and courtrooms. Yet those torches and burning crosses and batons, tear gas, fire hoses, attack dogs, and unfair laws and trials that could not stop progress. The blood of John Lewis and so many other brave and righteous souls that was spilled in Selma on this Sunday in 1965 sanctified a noble struggle. And when the country saw those images that night, America was forced to confront the denial of democracy, the fierce urgency of justice. Congress passed the Voting Rights Act a few months later, and President Johnson signed it into law. But the legacy of the march in Selma is that while nothing can stop free people from exercising their most sacred power as a citizen, there are those who will do anything they can to take that power away. The Voting Rights Act began to dismantle barriers to voting and to make our elections more free, fair, and representative. I was always proud to lead the efforts to reauthorize it over the years as a U.S. Senator in the Judiciary Committee. But at the same time, Republicans at every level have chipped away at it. Then in 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, holding that times have changed and blatant voter discrimination was rare, contrary to the assault that was taking place on the ground. The late Justice Ginsburg wrote the decision was like, quote, throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm, end of quote. Today we have a hailstorm, not a rainstorm, a hailstorm. In 2020, our very democracy on the line, even in the midst of a pandemic, more Americans voted than ever before. Multiple recounts in states and decisions of more than 60 cases from judges appointed by my predecessor, including at the Supreme Court, upheld the integrity of this historic election. Yet instead of celebrating this powerful demonstration of voting, we've seen an unprecedented insurrection in our Capitol and a brutal attack on our democracy on January the 6th. And never before, a never before seen effort to ignore, undermine, and undo the will of the people. And to think of that, and yet it's been followed by an all-out assault on the right to vote in state legislatures all across the country. You know, during the current legislative sessions, elected officials in 43 states have already introduced over 250 bills to make it harder for Americans to vote. We cannot let them succeed. Last week, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 1, the For the People Act of 2021. This is a landmark piece of legislation that is urgently needed to protect the right to vote and the integrity of our elections and to repair and strengthen our democracy. I hope the Senate does its work so I can sign it into law. I also urge Congress to fully restore the Voting Rights Act, named in John Lewis's honor. Today, on the anniversary of Bloody Sunday, I'm signing an executive order to make it easier for eligible voters to register to vote and improve access to voting. Every eligible voter should be able to vote and have that vote counted. If you have the best ideas, you have nothing to hide. Let the people vote. And I'll close with this. A few days before he passed, Jill and I spoke with John, Congressman Lewis. But instead of answering our concerns about him, we talked about how you doing, John. He asked me to stay focused on the work left undone to heal and to unite this nation around what it means to be an American. That's the God's truth. John wouldn't talk about his pending death or his concerns. He said, we've just got to get this done. That we're all created equal. We all deserve to be treated equally. On this day of reflection, please, let's stay focused on the work ahead. Let's remember all those who came before us as a bridge to our history so we don't forget its pain, and as a bridge to our future so we never lose hope. May God bless their memory. May God bless you all. And may God protect our forces.
Let's give another round of applause to the President of the United States. At this time, we will have a tribute by Dr. Bernard Lafayette.
Greetings to all of you. I cannot tell you what this means to me. And when you see this smile on my face, what it's doing is reflecting the smile of my soul. Because we are talking about eyesight on one hand, and we're talking about insight on the other hand. So I first want to thank Dr. Mitchell and our senators, elected officials, Senator Hank Sanders, and Ms. Farrows, and all of those who put this together. And the thing that makes me most excited is that you have the spirit, the fortitude, and the strength to find a way out of no way. There are those who said that no, there won't be a ceremony in Selma this year because of the pandemic and because of the difficulties that we face, because the difficulties we face requires a mass. And we cannot face these difficulties without a mass. So we have come together, and I have to confess with great surprise to find all of the celebrities and all of the people who support our movement down through the years are here with us, including our cameramen. Yes, because we're recording history, and we continue to make history. And we must do it for our young people. They cannot allow this to pass without them understanding what has already gone down. And when things go down, our young people have to understand that they can also rise. We cannot let things tear us down because they go down. That we must continue to hold tight. And who could we possibly admire and pay a tribute to? John R. Lewis and C.T. Vivian and all of the others who have made their contribution. And we think about the fact that we have one time to live. And in years to come, we all shall go. But the question is not when we go or where we go, it's what we leave behind is the question. Our program is extended today because we have people who have much to say. But I will help you by making this very short. And the tributes that we are going to give to those like Joe Lowry and C.T. Vivian and John Lewis. And we have to add others onto it. Of course, Martin Luther King, and of course, Jim Bevel, and of course, all of those, Mrs. Boynton, and Bruce Boynton, Sam Boynton. You go down, and you know what I thought about today when I was driving up here? It's not individuals. We are talking about movement families. Isn't that something? Yeah, they're children. Look at Martin Luther King III. You start adding numbers behind the names. The second, the third. We're looking for a fourth, Martin. Okay, go to work, go to work. But we have a great-granddaughter here. And we know that the future is in good hands because we can see the feet going across the bridge. We know the future is in good hands. And I can't be remiss, so I must also recognize my wife, Kate Lafayette, who's with us today. Oh, yes. How about 50 years? That's why I look so good. People tell me you sure look good. Yes, because I get tested every night with the makeup. Yeah, it's not so, it's real. It's called makeup, but it's real. Yeah, test it out. So when you get that kind of consistency, you can be sure that you will look good. Now I want to also say that 3 things. One is that we must develop the leadership among our young people. If we are going to have a future, it's because we have laid the groundwork for it. And you got to make sure that the leadership you have is leadership that has skills, confidence, and commitment. And the only way we can be sure of that is that we must have training, nonviolent training. Martin Luther King advocated that, institutionalizing it. And I want to again say that I am so proud of this institution. I don't care about the name. The most important thing is the content, what it means. And Dr. Mitchell, we're proud of you. I have a confession I make here now today, because we have to make confessions since we don't know how long we'll be here. Okay? The reason you're still here is because I prayed that you would change your mind. Okay? That's why. Stick with it. Don't let anybody turn you around. Don't let anything turn you around. No matter how difficult the day would be, sometimes those who you depend on, they have depends. They act like it. But don't let anybody let you down, no matter how hard they might try. Stay on board. Keep the ship afloat. And I want to say that we are proud of you and what you've done. And as I close, I want to say that what we need to do in a very practical way is to create a youth legislature in the state of Alabama, Georgia, and other places, where our young people will elect folk of their own age, 12 to 17, and let them be in those offices just like, okay, the ones who are elected, so they can understand how the government runs. But they need to also understand how the government walks. And sometimes we take one step forward and 2 steps back, running. We got to understand how the government runs so we can be able to correct those things and make sure that we have a government that's for the people, no matter what the circumstances are. I feel good. I don't know about you. As I close, I'm going to tell you why I feel good. Because the women are taking charge. I'm going to leave you with this. No offense to the men, but physiologically, women have more nodules on their brain, which means that they can do several things at the same time. Okay? Multitask. So the women that we're talking about are stepping forward. They've always been there by our sides, but I'm talking about stepping forward. Yes, women can carry on 3 conversations at the same time. You know why? They have more nodules on their brain. And the other thing is they repeat themselves a lot. We're in good shape, men. Don't worry about it. Things going to be all right. I can tell you the future is going to be in our hands. Thank you.
That's a hero, y'all. He's the one that organized the young people, the courageous 8, Bernard Lafayette. Something's got to be named in Selma, Alabama after Bernard Lafayette. Give it up to Bernard Lafayette. Thank you. Right now, the family of the people that we're honoring today are here. And before I introduce these awesome young people, Well, they ain't so young, but they were young when I knew them in Selma, but they still young. But I want to recognize the family of Dr. Joseph Lowry. If you're present, please blow your horn. Dr. Joseph Lowry, Dr. C.T. Vivian, Dr. C.T. Vivian, y'all just come forward so people can see you. If you would just walk this way. We lost all of these giants last year. We lost John Lewis, Dr. Vivian, Mr. Boynton. I saw his widow, Boynton. Would y'all please come forward so people can see you? Would you just step forward here? John Lewis, we lost John Lewis. We lost all of these giants last year, y'all. And we want to take a moment of silent prayer just to remember these giants. When we leave here, we will go to the bridge and place wreaths to them. Evelyn Lowry, is she here? Miss Lowry's daughter. I know she's here somewhere. Thank you so much, y'all. Just give a big blow horn for these giants. They were here when they were alive. They came here nearly every year. Thank you so much. Those of us, when we leave here, we will take a slow route to the bridge and we will place wreaths to these giants. Right now, it is my extreme honor and pleasure, I know, to introduce or to present two young people that are extraordinary. And what's special, you know, when I started talking, I talked about Georgia on my mind. Well, Georgia did a fantastic thing, but two of the people that made Georgia happen were young people with roots in Selma, Alabama. Ain't that something? I don't care where you go, you got to come back to Selma. Before I introduce them, please allow me to do this. I wanted to do it when I introduced the senators, but I know I was conscious of the time. But I really wanted to say something about Coretta Scott King. We always talk about Dr. King, and rightfully so. But the reason why we started the Coretta Scott King Martin breakfast is because they were a team. Thank you, Martin, for reminding us that Coretta and Martin were a team, just like Hank Sanders and I are a team, just like April Albright and her husband are a team. She ain't here, but I know. Just like C.T. Vivian and his wife were a team. So we want to recognize and urge you, I will not be satisfied until there's a statue of Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King at the foot of that bridge. Can we make that happen? They were a team. They were a team. And the people I introduce you today are a team. They're not a marital team, but they're a team. They have their roots right here in Selma. Cliff was not born in Selma. He wasn't those the Yankee boys. But he fell in love with a Southern gal who happened to be the daughter of John England. Judge England is here today. And Latasha Brown was actually born right here and raised in Selma, Alabama. In 1965, these young people were not alive. But there were young people like Charles Malden and South Hall and other young people who built this movement right here in Selma. Now, people like them are old now, but they had people to come along and continue the struggle. Now, Alabama's loss was Georgia's gain. Now, they might not want me to say this, but I'm going to say it. See, Latasha ran for the Senate, and they took it from her. Y'all, she won, but they stole it from her. And God knew what he was doing, because God knew that we needed Latasha Brown in Georgia. Because if she wasn't in Georgia, we wouldn't be getting that stimulus and that Medicaid expansion. Well, Cliff Albright came here and started another party with 48 and a lot of they lost. But God knows Alabama's loss was not just Georgia's gain, it was America's gain. Because guess what? Millions of children will be taken out of poverty because of that stimulus bill. We would not have that stimulus bill without the work of these two young people and others like Tracy Abrams. I have They started together, and I'm going too long, but I was real short the last time because I wanted to save my time for them, okay? They started an organization called Black Voters Matter, and I know they would like for me to recognize those who started Black Lives Matter. They not only raised money, but they had strategy. They were all over the place. Didn't y'all get tired of seeing Tasha on MSNBC? No, I'm just kidding. So I want to say to you, these two young people, how precious they are. And I got a shirt made in their honor, and my shirt reads, "Ain't I a human? Ain't I a human?" Sojourner Truth said, "Ain't I a woman?" But with the Black Voters Matters, they're saying not only does your vote matter, but your life, your humanity matter. Yes, we are human. And who better illustrates the young blood, that commitment that continues to run through the veins of our young people? Latasha, a child of 21st century in the house. Cliff, a child of one of my heroes. Chuck Way. That's right. Malcolm X grassroots movement. They laid the foundation along with other organizations for these young people to be present today to deliver us a new America, because for the first time we might be able to say we are American citizens. Let's give it up and give real love for two wonderful people who, guess what? They got in good trouble. And they got in good trouble so that we could have that stimulus check, some health care, some love, and some justice in America. So I present to you, give it up, Latasha Brown from Selma, Alabama, Cliff Albright. Thank y'all so much. Got some weight to it.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Fire Rose. Thank you to the entire committee. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for this award. This is nice, y'all. And thank you to God. This is truly a day the Lord made. This is a beautiful day, and we're so glad to be here. And I'm going to follow in the lead of Dr. Lafayette. I'm going to give honor to my wife, who's very much one of the quiet third co-founder of Black Voters Matter. And so I just want to shout out April England Albright. And, you know, it's an honor to be here on this day, but I have to say, even as we're commemorating this moment in history 56 years ago, we'd be remiss, and many people have already talked about this, if we didn't remind ourselves that the movement's not over, that we are in the current moment of this generation's fight for voting rights. And so what we are asking folks today is for us to commit to that moment, for us to commit to this movement. We're asking everybody who's here, everybody who's watching, everybody who's listening, everybody in D.C., we need a commitment that we are going to advance this generation's voting rights. That's what we need today. That's right. And for everybody listening, I know the folks here that are committed, right? But for everybody who's listening, we don't need to know, we don't want to hear what you would have done in 1965, because 1965 is still here. We don't need to know what you would have done if you was in the movement, because the movement is still movement. So we need a commitment from everybody today, everybody within the sound of our voice, that we will move this movement forward, that we will support this pending legislation that Representative Sewell, y'all give it up for Representative Sewell. She's doing a great job in Congress. But we gotta move this HR 1 and HR 4 forward, and we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, y'all, because here's the deal. We know what the other folks are gonna do, right? We know the other folks are wrong. We know that not just in Georgia, but across this country and in that Congress, you're not gonna find 10 Republican votes for HR 4 and HR 1. We gotta talk about the elephant in the room, y'all. right? But no matter what they do, but I'm not worried. We know that they have so much disdain for voting rights, and not just for voting rights, but for voters. They are trying to criminalize, as Martin III said, they are trying to criminalize just giving water and food to voters that are in line. How much disdain do you have to have for democracy to try to criminalize trying to feed the voters, right? So we giving them water. How much disdain do you have to have for the voters for you to try to criminalize expanding access to the vote and taking care of voters? So we know who they are, y'all. Well, as Sister Maya said, when they show you who they are, believe them. So there's a lot we can say about them, but here's the deal. I'm not worried about them because guess what? We got power. We got the power. And black voters risked our lives, and black organizers risked our lives in the midst of coronavirus, in the midst of winter, in the midst of the holidays, in the midst of a runoff that they said black voters ain't gonna come out in the middle of a runoff, and black voters came out and shocked the world. We risked our lives so that we could get the power to advance voting rights registration and the George Floyd Act and minimum wage and all these other issues. So here's the deal, y'all. We have got to end the filibuster. We have got to end that Jim Crow relic called the filibuster, a filibuster which by definition is anti-democratic and by its usage is anti-black. We have got to end that filibuster, and we're calling on everybody here, everybody listening, everybody in the White House, yes, even President Biden. We need the president. We thank you for this historic $1.9 trillion, y'all. We thank President Biden for signing the executive orders that he signed today, but we need him to use everything at his disposal, every tool as the President of the United States to end this filibuster now. That's right. And guess what? If we believe, and this is the last thing I'm going to end and turn it over to my sister, if we believe that we have the power to do so, then guess what? Our history shows us, this city shows us, this movement shows us that when we believe, there ain't nothing that we can't do. When we believe we've got the power to shock the world, we've done it once, we've done it before, and we will do it again. Because I read somewhere, somebody help me, somewhere, there's a pastor here, somebody told me I read someplace that as a man thinketh, as a woman thinketh, so is he and so is she. So I'm asking you all today to believe that we got that power. If you believe we got that power, make some noise. If you believe we got the love and power, if you believe we got the same love and power as Reverend Lowry and as John Lewis and as Reverend Vivian and Bruce Boynton, make some noise. If you believe we got the power of Amelia Boynton and Marie Foster and Fannie Lou Hamer, I need you to make some noise. And with that belief, we are going to get the rights that we deserve, not just as citizens, but as human rights in this society. As Sister Fire said on her shirt, ain't I human? Y'all, we got the power. I love y'all. Thank y'all.
Hey, family. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom's land. Amen. Amen. Listen, y'all, I'm going to be short. I just want to say I'm so grateful. If there's any award that we receive around Black Voters Matter, it's because of you, Selma. This was training ground for Cliff and I. You all nurtured us. You loved us. You showed us the power when black folk believe in themselves, what they can do. We learned about white supremacy right here in this city. We learned about voter suppression right here in this city. We also learned about the roots of resistance. Thank you, Sister Faya Teray, for being that leader, for being a mentor to us. Thank you, Hank Sanders. I remember telling folks right now, I was like, when you want to see somebody work a room in politics, Senator Sanders would sit there and I'd be thinking he'd sleep. And then the whole thing go the same way. I was like, how did he do that? And so I just want to acknowledge and offer that in this space, if I'm going to say is it seems like y'all, it seems like we're going through the same thing. It seems like we're in this vicious cycle, right? But the truth of the matter, y'all, I got good news for you. We are winning. And let me tell you what I mean by we are winning. Our liberation is not contingent upon white acceptance. Our liberation is not dependent on whether we win an election set up by a system that was set up and designed to give us a disadvantage. Our liberation is based on when we believe, when black folk in this country start believing in our agency and our power, things got to change. Walls got to come down. Systems got to be transformed. So I came to give you the good news that who you are and your power is not contingent. They can do what all they want to do in Georgia. They did everything they could to stop us. They can do all they want to do in Alabama. But ultimately, when our people rise up, things change. My mighty people rise up. And so I say this to you because ultimately what we got to know is who we are. That the good news is when we stand in the power that God has given us, that literally we are people that folks didn't even want to survive. We are people that lasted in the bowels of a slave ship. We are the people that even when we were beaten on the bridge, we changed the course of this history and this country. We are the people that make democracy be real. There would be no democracy in this country without black folk. And so I say that to you, that ultimately what we are literally standing up against, do not grow weary in well-doing, because in due season. And so our people have to understand that literally in this moment, what is happening while we're seeing Trump and while we're seeing all of this stuff happening across the country is not because we're losing, family. It's because we're winning. And what does winning mean? Victory looks very different. Winning means that there's a generation of young folk who last summer took the streets and organized the largest uprising in the history of this country. That's what winning looks like. What winning looks like is when you got folks changing mindsets by saying Black Lives Matter all around the world. That's what winning looks like. Winning looks like when black folks say, it don't matter how many laws you got. When black folks say, in Georgia, when our folks, they told them they couldn't wear the T-shirts, you know what they did? They came back the next day and gave everybody T-shirts. That's what winning looks like. Winning looks like when our people decide that we are going to be self-determined and we're going to radically reimagine every single system in this country, and that who we are is not contingent upon somebody else's acceptance of us, but it's literally about the acceptance of who we are and standing in that. So I am going to close now, just say thank you, but I want to remind you of the good news, because oppression will make you think that you're losing. White folks, that was what it's designed to do, to make you think that in some ways that you ain't got no advantage because I'm going to lock you out of my system. So have your system. We will create a system that literally will create democracy for all people. We will create a system that literally lifts up all of our family. We will create a system that will transform not just this nation, but literally that fundamentally that everything is not just about democracy, y'all. It is, as Miss Sanders said on her shirt, it is for the love of humanity. So in that spirit, I'll just say, well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. Hold on, family. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. Peace and blessings.
At this time, we will have Attorney Cheryl Eiffel, President of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I sure wish I could be in Selma with you this year, as I have been every year since I became President and Director Counsel of the Legal Defense Fund in 2013. Selma is such an important place for this country. It is fertile ground for democracy. It is of vital importance to everyone who values democracy. It means a great deal to the Legal Defense Fund since we were there in 1965 representing Dr. King and the Selma marchers, working to prepare and to ensure that the federal court would issue an order that would eventually allow the march to go forward as it did on March 21st. And from March 21st to March 25th, thousands marched to Montgomery, completing the march that had been met with violence in Selma on March 7th, 1965. This morning, I want to salute first and foremost the Selma foot soldiers, those who put their lives on the line, those who sacrificed for this country and for all of us. Many of their names have been forgotten, but you are not forgotten. You live on in our memories, in our hearts. We lift you up today for your sacrifice and for your courage. And of course, I want to honor Senator Hank Sanders and Fire Rose Sanders, two stalwarts, champions of voting rights and of full citizenship for Black people, and great friends of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We have stood shoulder to shoulder with Hank and Fire Rose for decades, and I wish I could embrace them this morning as I do every year at the Unity Breakfast, but I salute them for their tenacity, their resilience, their focus, and their determination on behalf of Black people. And of course, I want to lift up your honoree, Representative Clyburn, who is truly an amazing leader, elected leader in this country, visionary, whose career and whose arc of his life's work is committed to civil rights and justice. Thank goodness he is there in Washington, D.C. Thank goodness he is there in South Carolina. And I want to lift him up, and he is properly honored this morning. I'm going to say just a few words, and then I have to go, and those few words are this. This fight that we have been in for such a long time is not over. Last year when we met at this time, it was a difficult year. We knew that 2020 would be a challenge. John Lewis was still with us, and he told us that day on the bridge to never give up. He said, never give in. And he said, vote like you have never, ever voted before. And you know what? You did. We did. We turned out in this country. We stood on lines. We put on masks. We put on PPE. We voted absentee. We voted early. We stood on line for hours on end. We met voter intimidation with courage and fearlessness, and we voted in numbers never before seen in this country. And the result was that we, as a people, took the turn and decided that we wanted to live as a democracy, a place where equality, justice, and opportunity, and not cruelty, and not injustice, and not inequality, and not inhumanity, were the order of the day. So we did precisely what John Lewis told us to do. And I want to tell you that the Legal Defense Fund, our staff of attorneys and organizers and our policy team, we worked like never before in 2020. We collaborated with LeBron James and the More Than a Vote initiative to ensure that we had enough poll workers to ensure that polling places could stay open despite the pandemic. We put out PPE, sent it directly so that people would have the masks and the gloves they needed to participate in the process. We filed suits across the country. We sued President Trump. We sued Bill Barr. We sued the Republican National Committee. We sued Alamance County, North Carolina, where law enforcement met those marching to the polls with pepper spray. We did what we had to do. We sued the state of Alabama. We sued Louisiana. We sued South Carolina. We sued Arkansas, all in the effort to expand absentee voting opportunities. We left it all on the field in 2020, like Representative Lewis told us to do. And the result was the November election and, of course, the special election in Georgia. We sued the United States Post Office, I can't forget that, demanding that every ballot be delivered in a timely fashion, painstaking work every day in court into the evening to get those ballots delivered. But the battle ahead is still formidable. Now we have the chance to make change legislatively, change that can ensure that we can expand the electorate. It's one thing to go from lawsuit to lawsuit in county after county, but we need legislation just like in 1965 we needed the Voting Rights Act. Fortunately, we have two pieces of legislation, one already passed in the House, H.R. 1. And H.R. 1 will provide the kinds of protections that we need to early voting, to absentee voting, ensuring that formerly incarcerated people can vote in federal elections. We need that legislation to pass the Senate. And in order for that legislation to pass the Senate, you need to call your senators. And so I'm asking you this week as your assignment to call both of your senators this week and tell them you expect them to vote for H.R. 1. You can call them at 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. If you can't reach them by phone, send them an email, tag them on Twitter, find a way on social media to reach out to them and tell them you expect them to support H.R. 1, the For the People Act. But we also have H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and we need that to move forward in the House. In order for that bill to move forward, we need to hold hearings. We need hearings so that you can come forward to Congress and share with them what you confronted in 2020 in voter suppression. We need a record that includes the truth and the full reality of what ordinary voters and what particularly ordinary black and brown voters face in this country and have to overcome to be able to participate in the political process. And so we need those hearings to unfold in the House, and when we call you and ask you to submit testimony, I hope that you will and help make that record as robust and strong as it can be. That's all about voting, and that's critically important, but I want to tell you that the November election and the January special election means we also have the right for movement on the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. All across the country, millions of Americans were out in the streets protesting last summer against police violence and racism. The result was the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. That act has already passed the House as well and now heads over to the Senate. I want to tell you, they are going to try to weaken this bill. They are going to try to remove from the bill the heart of it, the measures that will require accountability for police officers who engage in unconstitutional policing. We need an end to qualified immunity. We need a database, a national database of police misconduct. Don't let them tell you that the bill can go forward without those crucial elements. So I also need you to call your senator about the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. We need the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. This is a year for us to press our advantage. We cannot vote and then relax. We have to vote and then we have to move in and ensure that those who we have elected will fulfill the portfolio of demands that we have for them. And so I'm asking you to stay on your post, to stay engaged, to make those phone calls, to send those emails, and to demand the passage of these important pieces of legislation. We do it in the name of John Lewis. We do it in the name of C.T. Vivian. We do it in the name of Reverend Joseph Lowry. We do it in the name of the great Vernon Jordan. We do it in the name of all of those who passed on and will not see the march this year with us. We do it in the name of the 500,000 who have died as a result of the COVID pandemic. We know that votes matter in terms of how we respond to this emergency crisis, as we know from the COVID relief bill just passed yesterday. I know that this has been a challenging time. I remember last year how we were all together, thousands of us, and it seems like another era after this pandemic. But we are here for a reason. We are here to keep pressing and to keep fighting. I know you stand with us. I know you want to keep fighting. And even if you're tired, take a brief rest, then get back on your post, make those phone calls, send those emails. If you want information, go to our website at www.naacpldf.org, naacpldf.org. Follow us on social media. Follow me on social media. I always have good information for you. I celebrate each and every one of you. I thank you for joining us this morning, and I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this day, even if virtually, to know that we are standing together still in the fight. Thank you all so much.
At this time, we will have very brief closing remarks by our speakers. At this time, we representing Reverend Jesse Jackson, we will have Mr. Jonathan Jackson.
I'd like to give a very special thank you to my sister Latasha Brown and brother Cliff Albright. We come here today to commemorate. We set aside a special time to thank God for those that have brought us thus far. There are so many that have died and struggled and sacrificed. We come here to remember them today. I want to say thank you for this church service. Why do I call this church? Because the Reverend Clay Evans taught us that when you glorify God and edify man, that's church at its highest calling. We've got to pick up the people and raise the body of Christ. I want to say a very special thank you to Hank and Rose Sanders. My father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, told me without Hank and without Rose, there would be no commemorative march that keeps this memory alive in our hearts. We also come here today to celebrate those that are alive. Our struggle is not dead. We've seen these exciting voices. I see the great Reverend Dr. Charles Steele. The SCLC is alive and fighting. When I see my friend and my brother, the great Dr. Martin Luther King III, he was raised on these bridges, raised on these roads, and he honors his mother and his father and their great tradition by coming out year after year. Our struggle is alive and well. When I think of our congressperson, Miss Terry Sewell, we now get to choose the congressional person of our choice to represent us, and she's doing a marvelous job in Washington, D.C. On behalf of my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, I'm honored to accept this award on his behalf. He greatly wanted to be here with you today. And I remember flying into Birmingham last night, and my heart was full of joy as I landed at the Fred Shuttleworth Airport. I got in the rental car and came down 20 West to I-65, turned over to 139. I was on the phone, and you know the phone service can go in and out. I'm talking to Miss Rose Sanders, and I'm trying to get instructions, and she says, you may not want to go that way, but you can, but just know that GPS can go out. She said GPS can go out. And then I finally made it into Montgomery, into Selma, down Water Street. My closing comments are GPS can go out. Why are we in Selma today? Because we have Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. People are blogging and posting. But I want you to know my father told me marching isn't going to go away. After marching, we have the crucifixion. After marching in the crucifixion, come April 4th, we will have the resurrection. We have new technology, but Jim Crow is still the same today as he was yesterday. He's dressed up. He's mutated. He's like the COVID virus. We have to do contact testing and tracing and chase down racism every place it goes. We're winning. When we've got black attorney generals in 8 states, I know they've got 43 states that are stacking the laws against us on voting, but we've got black lieutenant governors, black vice presidents, over 60 blacks in the Congress. We're winning. If you think we're not winning, go find Jeff Sessions and tell him he lost again. I am happy to welcome Jeff Sessions back to the state of Alabama as a private citizen. May you rest in peace. I want you to know Jefferson Davis is disgraced. Our people came here on the last slave ship in Alabama, the slave ship Clotilda, landing in Mobile Bay. It's been 346 years before we got the right to vote as an American citizen. We're not through, and we're not going to go back. Jim Crow is going to die. We're going to kill him. We're going to finish it. We're going to make the American dream true for black folks, poor folks, and working folks, and God bless you.
My brother and my friend, Brother Charles Steele, where is he? But I came up because we are so close and have worked together, and he's the last one almost. But I have to do 2 things. Come on up, Brother Steele. He and I worked closely over the years together before he got in the Senate, while he was in the Senate. And I apologize that he's ending up virtually last. But while he's standing here, there's two important announcements that I want to make. Sister Latasha Brown got an announcement clear. However y'all gonna do it, come make this announcement, because y'all want to hear this announcement. I want to hear it.
That's right. So we wanted to say something special. We think that is important. If we're building movements, movements take money. Right? Amen? And so part of what we have to do in this moment is really support Black-led institutions. And so as a result, what we want to do is we want to put a challenge. So if you're really serious about this, if you are looking at this right now, there are institutions on the ground that are doing work. And so we're going to put a challenge of something that we want you all to do to follow suit of what we're about to do right now.
So our challenge is this. We are committing $100,000 to the Jubilee Foundation because putting this on, y'all be clear, there wasn't a celebration going on in 1966 and 1967, right? It took vision to help make this Jubilee possible, and it takes resources to make this Jubilee possible, to hold the memory and the legacy of this work, to keep it alive. And so our challenge is for everybody here, everybody watching, everybody on the video, everybody, we want to see a match to that $100,000 that we're giving to the foundation to continue this work and this legacy. Thank y'all.
One last announcement. I want to ask Fire Rose to step up here. She's not going to be able to speak because we'll run out of time. This is a surprise because she doesn't know about this award. This is the 2021 Martin and Coretta King Inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award for Fire Rose Ray. She doesn't know it, and she's not going to get a chance to speak, but I want y'all to know it was here. Brother Charles Steele.
I'm going to say something simply because he said I couldn't say something. Thank you.
My brothers and sisters, I'm so happy to be here. It doesn't matter if I'm first or last, because my friend Senator Hank Sanders and I go back a long ways, as well as his lovely wife, Fire Rose. But I came here to tell you that we're not halfway to the finish line. We're dealing with a pandemic, the coronavirus, but we also have another virus called racism. And many people don't want to talk about it. But racism is something that's a silent killer, just like COVID-19. And if we don't talk about it, we can't eradicate it. I just want to say that I remember so vividly a couple months ago when Doc Rivers said, for all of these years, we love this country, but this country has never loved us back. And I'm for reparation. You can't be afraid to talk about that. Reparation is deserving and should be committed to all African Americans and people of color with African blood in them. And what I need you to know is that you can't be afraid and be in this movement. Matter of fact, I don't fool with no scared Negroes. I don't fool with them. You cannot be afraid. I was in Chicago, Jonathan, week before last, dealing with Nielsen TV. And you know Jonathan, Cheryl Grace, been there 17 years. You and your father been working with her. But they called me to Chicago just a few days ago, and all that snow y'all had. And I went on up there. And I told Nielsen, we would shut you down. And they so big that not only are they rating TVs, stations all over the world, they have bought out Arbitron. Arbitron rates the radio stations. She been working there for 17 years, had a relationship with SCLC. in the position that I'm in, what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. served. I'm just so happy to be here with Martin III, who's also my friend, and give us inspiration. But she worked that for 17 years, got all the black data, told them how black folks spend their money, how much we raise, and what we like. And after they got all of the data, they wanted to take her budget away from her. They wanted to take all of her staff away from us. Ladies and gentlemen, they had a cultural diversity officer, and he was the CEO. You can't operate like that. America is filled with racism, and many people are afraid to talk about it. You must have a healing from the transatlantic African slave trade from which we have come under a forced migration. You must realize racism is more now than it was 50, 60 years ago. And they get you at the bank. They won't let you have no money. With all of our standardized banking financial institutions, we're talking about African Americans get less than 3% of the loans from the banks. Entrepreneurship also as individuals. We have a problem with that. They put us in economic slavery. As LaTosha and Cliff was saying, it takes money to run a movement. And let me just pause right here. LaTosha and Cliff, I appreciate you all so much. We wanted to be a part of what took place in Georgia. And we were a part of it because of LaTosha and Cliff. We haven't seen each other maybe in a couple of years, but we talk on the phone. And when you call them, they return your call. I called LaTosha. She was in Puerto Rico doing something. And she said, call Cliff, and whatever you need, Cliff will take care of it. Give him a big round of applause. That's what we need. African Americans need collaboration. We need collaboration. We're boycotting and picketing the VA hospital in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, my hometown, because of racism. They called Negroes the N-word. They call them their slaves, and this is the federal government. But let me tell you something as I close. Politics has never freed the oppressed. The oppressed must free politics. We got to go, and we got to push it always to the edge. President Biden, I think, is going to do a great job, but you can't let him get away with black folks put me in office. Make him do something for black folks. Give us some reparation. Give us some opportunities of economic development. Let me say this and I'll close. My grandmama used to ask me all the time what I wanted to be when I grew up. She always thought I was going to be a preacher because I used to get the encyclopedias and preach from the encyclopedias when I was 8 years old. She looked at me, she said, whatever you do, stick to it. Not knowing that God was going to call me to civil rights. Amen. And so what am I saying is, grammatically, she asked a question to the neighbor. She said, is you is or is you ain't with me? We can't forget those old days. They might split birds and grammatically might have not been correct. But I'm asking you the question, is you is or is you ain't with me? Because the old folks knew something. Oh, I hear you honking your horn. You know about it. Because the Lord will take care of those who take care of themselves and others as he bless you. God bless you. Fire up. Fire up. Ain't gonna take it no more.
Just hang on. We're near the end, and at this time, we will have a tape presentation by the Reverend Al Sharpton, founder of the National Action Network.
Hi, I'm Reverend Al Sharpton, president of National Action Network. Let me say, as we gather at this breakfast this morning, that we remember the foot soldiers, those that paid a price, that gave us rights that we must protect. We must never forget the Amelia Boykins and the John Lewises and the Reverend Hosea Williams, but the nameless ones that went across that bridge, that shed blood for us. That's why we're fighting hard at National Action Network and other groups to get the George Floyd Policing Act passed and the John Lewis Protection Act passed and H.R. 1 passed. They've gone through the House, but not the Senate. You can't celebrate the 60s and leave it in the 60s. You have to fight now and keep fighting. That's why I am glad that I remain shoulder to shoulder with people like Senator Hank Sanders and Fire Torre and others that keep their shoulder to the wheel, the young and the old. We don't have a generation gap. We have a justice and freedom gap. Old and young need to fight to close that gap. Let's keep marching.
Thank you. And before we have Fire Rose and Mr. Walker come forward, I'd like to again thank everyone for supporting us and being here this morning. We truly appreciate it, and we will look forward to seeing you next year. Also, Fire Rose and Sam will give you instructions for the slow ride.
Y'all, let's give it up to Dr. Mitchell. This college will soon be named Mitchell University. Let's give it up to Dr. Mitchell and all the great things he do. We're getting ready to give instructions. Before I do that, I want everybody that was a part of the civil rights movement in '65, please to line up for a picture right here. I tell you, sit over there with Dr. Lafayette. You're already sitting down. And those of you who are part of the program today, I need you to come onto the stage, 6 feet apart. Everybody who participated, if we could get a picture first of all the people that were part of the movement in '65, please, y'all. Annie Pearl Avery, I don't see her. This is one of the oldest members of from '65. How old are you now, sir? 91. He was a part of the movement. Go and take a picture, please. Miss Annie Pearl Avery, where are you? She was the only person arrested on the bridge on '65. Sam, you want to give some directions?
Good morning. The first thing we want you to know is that when you're driving, we want you to put your flashes on. Everybody that's going to be participating in the slow ride, go ahead and put your flashes on as we're leaving. Now we're going to exit out through the gate to my left, and I'll be driving the white van. I'll be leading the procession, so just follow my lead. We want you to, we're going to be leaving here. We're going to be turning right out the gate and going down to Broad Street and turn left on Broad Street and go down to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The campus police will be assisting people on helping them get backed out and helping them get lined up. So if you need to wait for get some direction from the campus police, they will help you get your cars out, backed out properly and get them lined up so we can be able to go safely to where we're going next.
Please, everybody, please join us in the slow ride. Put the, you need help in putting the flags on your car. It's difficult to put on, but please, I think we'll just take the pictures over here, Hank, since everybody's over here. We're going to hear Brother Garrett. He's going to completely sing that song as you get into your cars, okay? And I want Tasha and Brother Garrett to join me right quick up here as we do We Can Overcome, not We Shall Overcome. So if I could get Sister, y'all know that child is an awesome singer, not just an organizer. Come on, Brother Garrett. And as we get into our cars, we're going to hear the full song. If I have to go, I'm going to go by myself. But right now, we're going to sing We Can Overcome. If you were on the program, or if you were a foot soldier or a veteran of the movement, please get over here for the picture, okay? Annie Pearl Avery, well, she's still at the museum. We have an awesome museum. I want to give a quick announcement. You can see the virtual march today at 2 o'clock. All you have to do is Google selmajubilee.com. We have a virtual march. The virtual march pre-march rally will start at 1 o'clock. The pre-march rally, selmajubilee.com. Y'all got that? We can begin lining up. All right, y'all ready? Okay. Okay, she can come on. No, I want you to sing it slow first, then we can speed it up. I'll speed it up.
You start.
I can't sing it slow. We shall overcome slow.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm going to let him lead. Come on,
okay. We shall overcome.
Sing it slow.
Slow, and then I'm going to speed it.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall
sing from your cars.
Overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe.
If you are still overcoming,
we shall overcome someday.
Now we're going to speed it up, Tasha. This is a new version. You ready for it?
Yeah, we're ready.
We can overcome. We can overcome. We can overcome
someday.
Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe. We can overcome. We can overcome
each day.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. You can overcome. You can overcome. You can overcome each day. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe you can overcome each day. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, we can. I can overcome. Oh, Lord, I can overcome. I can overcome each day. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe. I can overcome. I can overcome each day.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I can.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
We can overcome. We can overcome.
We can overcome each day.
Oh,
deep in my heart,
I do believe we can. We can overcome each day. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
We can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
We can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
You can.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I can.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I can.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Oh, we can overcome. We can overcome.
We can overcome each day.
Oh,
deep in my heart, I do believe we can overcome each day.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Amen. Let's join the slow ride. We'll stop at the bridge. Those of you who are going to march over with us to lay the wreaths, get at the front of the line. The rest of us will stand in line while the rest of us march across the bridge. You don't have to march. You can stay in your car unless you want to.
And I'm going to sing it for all of y'all. Well. I've been rejected way too many times in my life. I won't take no for an answer anymore. Seems all these walls been erected to stop my dreams, but I won't let that be a factor anymore. If you won't stand with me, if you won't go with me, I'm gonna go on by. won't believe with me, I'm gonna walk on by myself. I've got this burning fire deep in my soul, and I can't escape this lonely, lonely flame. My journey may go down an old rugged road, but I keep on pressing, 'cause I'm not afraid anymore. If you won't stand with me, if you won't go with me, I'm gonna go on by myself. Yeah. If you won't fight with me, if you won't believe with me, I'm gonna walk on by myself. 'Cause I can see clearly now. Finally I open my eyes. My future's mine, responsibility. Now I realize that if nobody helps carry my cross, I still gotta go on. If you won't stand with me, if you won't go with me, I'm gonna go on by myself. If you don't fight with me, if you don't believe with me, I'm gonna walk on by myself. By myself. If you won't stand with me, if you won't go with me, I'll go by myself. If you don't fight with me, and if you won't believe with me, I'm gonna walk on by myself. Sometimes I feel like I wanna throw my hands up, 'cause I can't breathe, but I'm still gonna go on by myself. Sometimes I wanna say, oh, 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 oh. I might have to walk on by myself. As y'all leave today, you might have to go on by myself. If your friends won't go, you still gotta go on by myself. When you reach those bridges of life, you might have to go on by myself. Go on by myself. I'm gonna say it one more time, y'all. If you won't stand with me, if you won't go with me, I'm gonna go by myself. God bless you.